The huge crowd that greets the royal couple as they move up the steps to the overseas terminal. This is immediately in front of the historic Rocks area in Sydney. For those people around Australia who might be unfamiliar with the territory here, the Rocks is just behind this overseas terminal. And of course that's where the convicts first were disembarked. They pitched their first tents in this particular area, Portia.
Yes, and the Rocks developed a very notorious name as like one of the red light districts of Europe. Whether or not it was justified, it's difficult to say. It was the place where the sailors, because the ships moored here, the sailors went after they got off. It was a place where the ladies who probably justified the reputation commonly given to the women of Botany Bay hung out their shingles. But it was also a place where there were many taverns, places of refreshment, entertainment. And of course the sole entertainment was meeting friends in places like that, or new friends. And this is the tradition which was brought with all the settlers who came in the early years, free or convict, from Britain and from Ireland.
So an appropriate spot to be hosting today's luncheon.
Yes, a friendly, welcoming, hospitable spot.
The Honourable the Premier of New South Wales and Mrs Unsworth.
The royal couple now moving into the state luncheon. They'll be quite busy eating today, actually, because they have the state luncheon, and then later on tonight they'll be entertained at Government House for dinner with the vice-regal representatives. So it's a day of eating today for the royal couple and those who are with them.
Let's hope they're sampling some of Sydney's best food.
I certainly hope they are. Well, the coat hanger, Sydney Harbour Bridge, and the crowded shot of Sydney Harbour at the present time. The Nippon Maru is actually going under the harbour bridge at the present time. And you really would have to be an accomplished sailor to move around Sydney Harbour. Of course, on Sydney Harbour at the moment, the 18-footers are competing. The race got underway a short time ago. Peter Wilkins on Sydney Head. Peter, how's the race going?
Well, we're just catching up with the action at the moment. And there's Fanair in centre screen. They're still making their way across towards Shark Island in this gentle sou'easter, and a little bit hard to tell who's in front at the moment. We should get a fair idea when they round the mark at Shark Island and then head up towards Clark Island and up towards us on South Head, and then further down to Dobroyd. But that's Fanair in the picture at the moment. And further away in front of them, I'd suggest the leading brigade. But still, Kerry Brewster, a very colourful scene here on the harbour. People again starting to mill on South Head, waiting for the tall ships parade, the parade of sail, and the 18-footers to head down there.
Yeah, a lot of people have stayed put on South Head. They haven't moved. They've had picnics. They've sat around waiting for the later events of the afternoon. They'd be really enjoying this, the skippers of these 18-footers, wouldn't they?
Well, would you be doing that? Look at Chesty Bond ploughing through the middle there, scything a path through all the spectator craft, the thousands of spectator craft, and going about there, which doesn't seem to be too difficult to manoeuvre there. And that's Ericsson's.
And latest technology boats.
Oh, absolutely. They're at least $20,000 a year to rig up, to keep in the water, and increasing all the time. And as I mentioned before, that's why they're going to be forced to open up the class a little bit, put a few restrictions on, because it really is an effort to sail these craft. You have to be a gymnast, a marathon runner, an athlete, all put into one.
Do you know what some of the leading skippers think of the new restrictions?
Well, I think they, a number of them who have been dominating the class have reservations about it, of course, but I think in the end they have to look to the good of the class, and they can't expect the sponsors to fork out all the time when the class is just becoming so restricted.
There's a spinnaker up.
And they're first with the spinnaker. And what a marvellous sight. They'll all be popping the kites soon and really making a fantastic and quick pace down towards us. And one of the huge cruisers on the harbour there, there's Bank of New Zealand, Hooker Group, and we're about to see another spinnaker pop there. Let's have a look at this set.
I grew up sailing 16-foot skiffs, which I think in strong winds can be quite exciting, not quite as exciting as the 18-footers.
Well, the 18-footers, of course, the secret is not to carry too much sail, and if they go out with the wrong rig, then the wind might pick up, the breeze fills out a little bit, and they find they've just got too much sail off, and so over they go. There's nothing they can do about that, so the early morning assessment in the park when they're rigging the boats, that's the key time to decide what sail to put up, how much breeze is going to be, how much it's going to fill out, and whether they're going to flop in or not.
I can remember one time screaming down Middle Harbour with the skipper of the boat I was on yelling out of control to all the boats around.
Well, a number of the skippers on this in the 18-footer ranks have moved up through the classes, and the 16.
But they no longer drop any of their crew off on buoys, do they? They used to do that many years ago.
No.
Yeah, the 16s of some years ago.
The 16s.
Never.
Oh, they wouldn't do that now.
18s.
No, they just right them up again. They fall over and set them up, and away they go. 3, you can't sail them efficiently with 2 prime.
No, I was thinking of the time when these skiffs carried up to a dozen.
Oh, right. No, back in the 30s, the 40s there, when they had 14 or 15 crew members.
So do the 18s go back that far?
Yes, indeed. Huge areas of sail. They carried as much sail as possible, and they had as many men on board as possible to try and, well, hold the sail together. That was the secret then. Now, of course, it's much more refined art. Technology has really got away. The carbon fibre hulls and Kevlar sails, and even a latest compound sails.
Well, look how fast they're going.
And that's Ericsson there with Jeremy Sharp, and he seems to be leading at least that little duo with Mike Walsh in the background there. And they're on starboard jibe and really powering down the harbour. Look at that. And they're heading up just past Nielsen Park at the moment, and I can see in the distance quite a throng and a very, very colourful sight as the 18-footers come into view. The CSR Grand Prix Challenge, just part of the action here on Sydney Harbour, and moving a fraction quicker than the first fleet reenactment was this morning.
How fast would they be going, do you think?
Oh, that...
And there, once again, we can see the incredible height of the masts as compared to the height of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. In fact, one of these ships had to wait until low tide the other day to be able to get underneath the harbour bridge with safety. Wouldn't want to sail all that way and lose the top of your mast. This is the Polish ship, the Damajerci, which is going underneath the bridge at the present time. And I think that is one of the tallest ships of the tall ships fleet that are out here at the present time. They certainly have. Look at that. The old and the new always make such a fascinating sight, don't they? It's amazing the crowds that have gone down to Darling Harbour through the week just to queue up for hours to get on board these tall ships. They've created just the most amazing amount of interest in Sydney. That's right.
And on the First Fleet, of course, you know, they brewed their own beer on the way out.
They did?
Yes.
That would have made the
For
voyage
the
a little
officers.
more palatable.
They also had fresh bread rolls for the officers every morning.
They baked them every morning on the
Yes.
ships out, didn't they? And yet the ships that came out in the First Fleet were, what, under 100 feet
Yes.
in length?
That would
Conditions
be
below
otherwise.
decks must have been
Well,
almost intolerable.
I think too that you would be stooping most of the time. 4'5" was the highest height between any of the decks. And of course in the sleeping quarters you probably crawled in and crawled out.
Oh, crawled out 4'5". That's a bit under 1.5 meters, isn't
Yes,
it?
you'd find it a little difficult.
Certainly, I would. Yes, 6'2". It's a bit difficult for me.
Of
Look
course-
at that once again. You can see the tall mast just getting underneath the harbour bridge. I'm not quite sure whether it's high or low tide at the present time, but you certainly realise just how much margin for error they have according to the tidal movement. And at this time of the year, the tides, time and tide wait for no man, but the tides are fairly high in fluctuation. Yes,
Really
yes,
have their seamanship.
let's hope that there are no collisions. Well, from Sydney Harbour, we're now going to head north in New South Wales to Tamworth, the home and the heart of Australian country music. And last Saturday night, the annual Country Music Awards were held. We're going to cross to Tamworth now for a performance by the NREC Studio Band.
G'day Australia, I'm Stan Costa, and with the NREC Studio Band, we're going to entertain you for a little while for the Bicentenary with some fine Koori music, Gum Trees.
3, 4.
Blue gum trees, I hear you calling me back to where I always feel so free.
Land where kangaroos and emus roam.
The bush will always be my home. I can hear the ripple of a mountain stream, see the sunset to my every dream. I can smell the scent of fresh cooked Johnny cakes and hear the cooey on the mix. Cooey, cooey, I can hear you calling me back home. I can hear the click sticks tapping out a song of a Tamworth band as I dance along. Cooey, cooey, I can hear you calling me back home. Cooey, cooey, I can hear you calling me back home. Cooey, cooey, I can hear you calling me back home.
I can hear the ripple of a mountain stream.
See the sunset in my every dream.
I can smell the scent of fresh cooked Johnny cakes and hear the cooey of a mate.
Cooey, cooey, I can hear you calling me back home. Cooey,
And the scene once again on Sydney Harbour where Hanamex might be leading. There's a long line of them spread across the breadth of the harbour as they head up towards South Head and then on to Dobroyd Head up near Manly. and carrying the big spinnaker there. Several of the 18-footers have dropped spinnakers. It's a difficult little breeze at the moment, so they're reaching in the southeast of it. Seems to be picking up just a fraction, and they're laying a mark about 200 metres off our position here at South Head, and really making quick time at the moment with that breeze just picking up a fraction. And Bank of New Zealand there, Peter Sorensen, perhaps his final year in 18-footers. What a performer there, but Hooker's gone straight past as though he wasn't moving. It might be a deceptive camera angle, but it certainly looks as though Craig Ramsden, sheet hand Michael Wilson and forward hand Greg Homan have Hookers going well today. And now Southern Cross, Rob Brown, a crewman on the Australia's successful America's Cup Challenge in 83 on Australia 2. He wasn't actually on board in the final races, but a great support man, and he gave his all there in that area, as he's done in the 18-footer class for many years. And they're just swooping on us down the harbour and up to South Head, and this is the path that the tall ships and the parade of sail will be taking later on. And as was suggested just a fraction earlier, they might be under sail as well. Now they're getting very close to us at the moment. It does look as though Fuji's, rather Hanamix, might be in front. They're laying this mark, and then they'll proceed up to Dobroyd Head, where they'll around the mark and beat a path back into the wind down towards Shark Island, Clark Island, and back to Fort Denison there. But Southern Cross, I feel, has the lead at the moment. There's only about 3 or 4 boat lengths in it between Bank of New Zealand and Southern Cross going about Finnair. And Southern Cross just stalling a fraction there as they jibing. And well, they seem to be semi-becalmed, almost to a standstill at the moment. The 18-footers. Well, one of the joys of sailing. You're moving 1 minute and standing still the next. Now there's a puff of breeze and away she scorches again, Southern Cross. Up ahead is Finnair, which might have stolen a march on them. And in fact, I think they have. So Finnair, it looks to be leading from Southern Cross, Bank of New Zealand, Chesty Bond and Hookers, the top 5 in the CSR 18-footer Grand Prix Challenge on Australia Day. But it's a very compact field, and I tell you what, anything could happen in the next run. They might be setting spinnakers here for this run up to Dobroyd. Let's just have a look at what the leaders are doing. That's the big CSR boy there. And there's Chesty Bond rounding it at the moment. Bank of New Zealand just on starboard tack, perhaps 20 metres astern, and about 10 metres astern of them is Hookers. And Finnair going further out to weather. And we're still waiting expectantly for the spinnaker pop, and here they go. Well, this should be spectacular. Well, that's Southern Cross is first up, then Chesty Bond. Now pops the spinnaker out, and Finnair finally gets it out, but a little bit slow on Finnair. They try to get a little bit more breeze there. So that's the scene from the 18-footers as the spinnakers set and they move away down towards Manly. A very compact field. Finnair and Southern Cross battling for the lead. Chesty Bond really looking to be moving into top gear at the moment. Bank of New Zealand with Peter Sorensen at the helm in 4th position. Hookers and Gestetner and Hanamix, who seem to have come to a grinding halt back near the mark. But there's Finnair sharing the lead at the moment as we take you back to the studio.
Peter Wilkins reporting on the 18-footers, and we'll take another report very shortly. And this quick whip around the harbour at the present time, shows us the activity there. But we're going to leave Sydney for the time being, leave the magnificent Sydney Harbour with its Opera House and the city skyline in the background to take you down south across the border. And already underway on a national tour of Australia is the Australian Bicentennial Exhibition, which is currently in Geelong. And we're going to cross to Geelong to David Turnbull.
Thanks very much, Barry. As you can see, the scene here at the Australian Bicentennial Exhibition down here at Geelong is just as colourful as all the other celebrations of a nation that are being conducted all over Australia today. And why not? The number of people that have been turning up here today has really swelled after the rain on the weekend. This exhibition is a unique exhibition. We've just got a fly past overhead at the moment. A lot of people are milling around waiting for some skydivers that are due any minute. This exhibition, as I was saying, is quite unique. It's your celebration, the celebration for all the people of Australia, no matter where they live, not just in the cities. It's not a one-off event. This exhibition will be travelling to all the corners of Australia over the next 12 months. It'll be on the road constantly. As you can see behind me here, these tents, in each place that the exhibition goes to, the local communities can take part. The local newspaper, the local historical society, all the community groups can set up their own displays, their own stories in the exhibitions, coinciding with this overall exhibition for Australia. The theme here, it's not a museum, it's not an art gallery, it's an idea that was conceived to try to give all the people in the remote areas of Australia a chance to take part in the bicentennial celebrations. And rather than me telling you what this exhibit's all about, let's take a walk now. I'll let you have a look for yourself. Let's take a walk with cameraman Mike Patterson and the exhibition director Desmond Kennard. From the outside, the Australian Bicentennial Exhibition looks like just another circus or perhaps a country show. But as soon as you walk through the gates, you're confronted with the dinky-dye imagery that makes this exhibition unique. The first display, this giant patchwork quilt, has been made by Australians from the 34 cities and towns the exhibition will travel to over the next 12 months, and it carries all the colours that make up the Australian landscape. This travelling exhibition is one of the largest and most difficult projects to be undertaken for the Bicentenary. It's taken 2 years planning and $25 million to put together, and its aim couldn't be more ambitious: to take the celebration of a nation not just to the people in the cities, but to the people in the outback.
The point about the exhibition is that this can be used by local organisations for a number of activities. So we provide, for example, our sound shell, where local organisations, local groups, musicians, school groups, choirs, what have you, can use that facility as part of the celebration of Australia 1988. I should also point out that we have community tents, which likewise give that opportunity for local people.
So in each place, the local people take part in the exhibition themselves?
Yes, that's why this exhibition is somewhat different, in that we're not imposing the whole exhibition on the community. There's an opportunity for that local participation.
For the next year, this exhibition will be on the move almost constantly. To reach the people it's designed for, it has a massive 20,000 kilometres to travel. Like the adventurous expedition undertaken by the first settlers, this journey will be made in convoy, only not in tall ships, but 34 Kenworth semi-trailers that have been modified for the job. So the trucks and their trailers become the exhibition in
Become the exhibition. You could say, and certainly when I've met people in the transport media, have said, well, it's an exhibition on transport. It's an exhibition on trucks. But it's more than that. It's a number of elements. And that's what's so amazing about this. It's the Australian innovation. And Darryl Jackson of Melbourne, an architect of Melbourne, conceived this whole arrangement, not just to use these hand technicons or purpose-built trailers, but to incorporate them within a whole structure using the tents, something like the Ballarat goldfields of the 1850s, upon which the concept is based.
The exhibition itself focuses on what it is to be Australian, and it's broken down into 6 broad themes: journeys, environment, together, identity today and the future. But it's not a museum.
It's not like a museum, although we use some museum techniques. The theme is Australia, past, present and future. Our brief was to cater for all Australians. Even though
A very difficult brief.
Even though I've spent many years working in museums, I've always formed the opinion that the kinds of visitors we get tend to be restricted to people who already have a reasonable knowledge and come because they want to further their knowledge. I don't feel that museums so far in Australia have reached out far enough to the populace at large. And what I hoped we would be able to do with this is to find a draw card, find something which would bring people in through those gates, whether it's just to look at the community tent or to see a band, a group in the sound shell. But no matter what it is, they might venture into our displays.
The displays themselves cater for every taste. The historically minded, for instance, may be interested in this stump jump plough that helped open up the remote corners of Australia to agriculture. The compass and telescope that Captain Cook used may catch the eye. Or perhaps this facsimile of the Constitution our democracy is based upon. But the everyday items can be just as fascinating. The Victor mower, the windmill, the stewed fruit Granny used to make, the Chesty Bonds t-shirt and the Shell-Tox fly spray all paint a picture of life in a sunburnt country. There are movies from the past and the present, newspaper clippings on the hardships of war, models paying homage to our heroes, and video displays that open the door on the future. If there is a main attraction, it comes in the form of a movie that's on show under the big top. It's entitled Celebration of a Nation, and it's certain to tug at your patriotic heartstrings.
I want it to be entertaining, naturally, but I hope that people will say, well, perhaps we're not such a bad country after all. I want people to be able to leave the site saying, I'm proud to be Australian. After all, we've come a long way in 200 years, and I hope that we will still be a great nation in another 200 years.
Back here at Geelong, we're still being bombarded by quite a spectacular display put on by the RAAF here at the moment. They're circling overhead. I'm sorry we can't show you the pictures because of the sun, but it really is quite an enthralling sight. The exhibition director, as you've just heard, Desmond Kennard, hopes that this exhibition will provide a sharper focus of what it is to be Australians for all Australians, people living in the remote corners of the continent. And these Kenworth trucks will be carrying the exhibition all over the country for the next 12 months. The last few days, as I told you before, the crowds have been building up. And I'm joined by the Hitchings family from Colac. Could I ask you, Gary, what you thought of the exhibition so far?
It's really good.
You've enjoyed it?
Yes, yeah. The work's gone in, it's been unbelievable.
Those jets are pretty good. Mark, yourself, could I ask you, what particularly have you enjoyed about the exhibition?
Well, the air aerobics display that's going on at the moment, of course.
It's hard not to notice.
Yeah. And we really like Captain Cook's articles of compass, binoculars.
The telescope and even the buckles off his boots were really quite phenomenal.
Yes, we thought that display was the best so far.
So how do you think this will go down in the country, for instance? People who don't get an opportunity to take part in the big celebrations in the city?
Well, I think if anybody can come along, it's well worth seeing, and it's one where they can participate in the celebrations. I really do.
Could I ask Crocodile Dundee down here, what did you like the best yourself?
The RAAF.
What about the exhibits? Did you like, walking through the impression of the future, or your brother, Lee?
Yes, the aerobatics.
Yeah.
In the air too, I like that too.
How do you think young boys your own age in the outback who may not have been to the sea or to the big city, how do you think they'll like seeing this show when it comes to town?
I think they'd like it, yeah.
Yeah. Have you been travelling yourself much through the remote, the desert parts of the country? Has it surprised you at all, seeing the snakes, or?
Not really, no.
No? You've done a bit of travelling?
Yeah.
Right, look, thanks very much for joining me.
Okay. All right.
As I've said, the exhibition will be going on for 12 months. It's not a one-off celebration, it's for all Australians, and it will be going on, travelling virtually on the road for the next 12 months, these flies. I'll just give you the number where people from all over Australia can find out about the exhibition, whether it's coming to their area. The telephone number, it's a satellite telephone number, and you contact it through the code 02 234 6888. If you contact that number, it actually goes via satellite to the exhibition wherever it's set up in Australia at the time, and you can find out whether it's coming to your area. But it's well worth seeing, particularly for the youngsters who haven't experienced the diversity of this great country of ours. Anyway, from here, that's about it here at Geelong. Have a good day.
And that was David Turnbull giving us the Great Australian Salute from Geelong and reporting on the Australian Bicentennial exhibition, currently on a national tour. And back in Sydney, once again, looking at the huge crowds that are building up on Sydney's foreshore with the Parade of Sail coming up later on this afternoon, and they're waiting for what should be one of the greatest spectacles of the day. Back in the studio, we've been delighted to have had Dr. Portia Robinson, who's Senior Lecturer in History at Macquarie University, with us today to be able to comment on history and the First Fleet, the convicts and so on. Portia, it's been a really great privilege having you, and I believe you've got a quick quote for us just before you leave.
Yes, it's been most unforgettable, and I think I agree with Ralph Clark. I am much charmed with this place, and I thank the ABC.
Well said. And now let's take you out to Peter Wilkins once again. The 18-footers are just about to come to a conclusion. Peter, what's happening?
Well, thanks very much, Barry. They've been down to Dobroyd Head under Spinnaker after passing us, or flashing by us, should I say, at South Head a short time ago. There it was Finnair leading with Michael Walsh, the former Rookie of the Year back in 1984. He was leading then and still is. And in fact, he's stretched the margin just a fraction, I feel. He's maybe 10 or 15 boat lengths ahead of Southern Cross, and it's further back then to Chesty Bond, and Bank of New Zealand has in fact come up a little, and as I see now they're passing Middle Head. That's Middle Head in the background. You can see Finnair just to the left of your picture there on Port Tack in this gentle sou'easter, about 8 to 12 knots, perhaps gusting here and there, a little more than that, but a really picturesque sight as they move down towards, well, where all the action is once again, the tall ships, the large Parade of Sail getting underway. Well, this is a small parade, but certainly a quick parade. And doing it nicely out on the rigging there, and another majestic view of Sydney Harbour. Seeing the cow dung throwing championships earlier on reminded me of a few events that are coming up of a weird nature in the sporting program in the bicentennial year. We've got the Trans-Australia Ballooning Challenge, the World Junior Bocce Championship, the Boomerang Throwing Cup, that's on up in Alice Springs from May the 5th to the 14th. We've got the Bicentennial Open Croquet Day down in Tasmania. That'll be centred on February the 7th. I hope you've got your plane tickets for that one.
You going down there?
I think I might go out to the Chatswood Club and have a look at what's going on there. There's the International Endurance Ride, the Ocean Yacht Race, and if you're a lover of the little more offbeat, you might be going to the World Thong Throwing Championships, or perhaps the World Mud Crab Racing, or the Underarm Gum Nut Racing. You perhaps might be there, Kerry.
So we're back on Finnair.
And Finnair heading down towards George's Head, and seeming to get a little bit of a spurt on there was Rob Brown in Southern Cross, and now they're just stalled for a fraction on Port Tack. It seems to be a little bit of a problem on the right of the screen, and they're not moving at all. And Fanair, well, they've taken the gust. A little bit far away to be taking all the wind from Southern Cross, and now Southern Cross gets moving, and Chesty, well, not in your picture at the moment, as Fanair tries to pick a path through the spectator fleet. Well, that looks like a dangerous happening. I wonder if they were actually as close as it looked from our vantage point. Michael Walsh, graduate from 12 footers, certainly knows what he's doing out in the harbour in these super slick machines. Well, his break now is back to that 10 or 15 boat lengths. Southern Cross has again got to move on. There's Trevor Barnabas in Chesty Bond. The challenge of Bank of New Zealand with the veteran Peter Sorensen looks to have ended a fraction, and Hooker's there. They're the top 5 in the Grand Prix race, and they're heading at the moment towards Bradley's Head and then on to the finish. So they're flying at the moment. I reckon they'll be there in about another 10 minutes. So for the time being, let's take you back to the studio.
Just in case I just little bit.
Well, meanwhile, back in the studio, we have a very special guest who's joined us today for our telecast, and I'd like to welcome along the Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher.
Thank you very much indeed. I must say I'm absolutely overwhelmed at the welcome that I have been given here today in Sydney. Have you seen all those tall ships, the crowds, all for me? I can't really believe it.
Well, I think, Prime Minister, there is another reason that they are bringing...
No, I think not. May I just finish? Because last night I came here a little earlier and I attended the concert, and the crowds, they came out to meet me. The cheering was wonderful. If you don't believe me, you can ask Prince Charles and Princess Diana. They were walking right behind me.
Oh, did you have a little chat to them at the time?
Well, they had a chat to me.
Oh.
Let's put it that way.
Of course.
No, I'm really only joking. Eat your heart out, Paul Hogan.
Prime Minister, do you mind if I call you Prime Minister?
No, I would be very worried if you didn't.
Oh, thank
Yes.
you. You've arrived out here just a couple of days ago for our celebrations. You know, of course, that there are other
Indeed.
celebrations going on besides your arrival.
Oh, yes, of course I do. And it's a most exciting time. It really is. And, you know, from the moment I arrived here, I was treated like royalty.
Really?
Oh, yes. As I stepped from my car, as I was coming into the studio, a group of very loyal people shouted to me, "Maggie, get tough. Maggie, get tough."
Get what? I'm sorry?
At least I think that's what they said.
Right. Well, of course, are you having any trouble with the Australian language difficulties?
Oh, no, not at all. Of course, I've met your Prime Minister, Bob Hawke, many times.
Yes.
We have had many discussions. I understand him extremely well, and we have a great deal in common. We go to the same hairdresser, you know.
Oh, really? We can't give any free plugs on the program today, unfortunately.
No,
but,
I don't expect that either.
No,
We're
no.
on to much higher things today, aren't we?
We certainly are. And if you can tell us a little bit more about your visit out here, you know, what you plan to be doing.
Well, of course, I intend to do a great deal of travelling while I'm here, although I'm particularly caught up in today. Who would not be, with all those exciting things going on all around the country? Melbourne, the cultural city. I think it has a worm competition. Is that right? Worm racing.
Yeah, we do. I think
what
we'll be crossing
an
this
event
soon.
to take place. That is most
I
exciting.
don't know whether you also saw some of the cultural events in Brisbane earlier, the thong throwing competition.
Absolutely splendid. Really splendid. I can't wait to see what else is going to take place.
This is true. Of course, we also had the cow patty throwing competition.
Really?
Do you find these cultural events...
I suppose, really, Mr. Eaton, or may I call you Barry?
Oh, please do, Prime Minister.
And
yes.
you may call me Mrs. Thatcher.
Oh, that's
Well,
very gracious of you.
That's quite all right. I'm used to saying these things to people like yourselves. Now, the thing is, you see, this cow, what did you call it?
Pat?
Cow pat. They throw it at each
Yes.
other, do they?
No.
Oh,
They
thank
just try to
goodness
throw
that.
it as far as they can.
Oh,
it's
I'm
sort of like
very
discus
glad.
throwing.
I wouldn't like to be in their presence. They could make a mistake, couldn't they?
Well, you wouldn't think that they might throw one at you.
Well, I should hope not.
Certainly
And
not.
I should hope not.
Well, the cultural events out here of all descriptions, of course, will be... you're going to stay as our guest for a little while?
I would be delighted to, because there are so many things taking place today. There really are, aren't there? And they are, as I say, also exciting. So I want to be able to stay as long as I can and watch all that's going on.
Good. Well, if you'd like to take a little breather here for a minute, we'll get you a cup of tea in a Dresden cup or something. And at the moment, we're going to Peter Wilkin, who's on South Head, and
Yes.
the 18-footers championship is just about to finish.
I see. Well, that sounds most interesting. Am I going to be able to watch that as well?
Certainly, yes.
How very nice.
Enjoy yourself.
Thank you.
Here's Peter.
Well, that's a bit of a hard act to follow. We're back out in the sunshine here with the 18-footers once again, and not too far to go for them. As we see a bit of the on-board crew activity that has kept Finnair in the lead today, and their crew, skipper Michael Walsh, Mark Walsh, and forward hand Dave Stabbock, certainly have the act together. Behind them, on the odd occasion, we've seen some of the more fancied competitors like Chesty Bond and Southern Cross, with Rob Brown at the helm, fall into the odd hole. But Finnair has been moving along quite rapidly throughout. And just picking up a gust there from the southeast. It's a fickle old breeze today, as they've found out. From the start, they were almost reaching until they got to a point just off us at South Head, where they were able to pop the spinnakers for the second time. They had them up briefly after they rounded the Clark Island mark earlier on, and there's a bit of trouble here. This could be critical, because they're all in the soup, and the key is not to let the sails go in, because that'd be the end of the section for Finnair. So in the lead and in trouble, and where are they? Where are they apart from in trouble? Well, there's the scene behind them, and now they seem to have righted the problem. Well, a few anxious moments there. The jib still luffing there, so obviously they haven't got the problem under control. And rapidly moving into the picture are the chasers. Well, the way they're all acting there, that might be it. I think that might have been the line there. Let's just check the course. So we've got Kerry Brewster having a look at the course.
Well, it shouldn't be.
Well, they should be going back to Fort Denison.
Keep racing.
According to our map, and that's where they're going there. So it must have really been a hole in the wind. They're all stopping there, but now Finnair's away again. Starboard tack.
I think, Peter, that they've regrouped a bit here. I think they're waiting for a few to catch up, because do you think?
Well, it could possibly be. They certainly look to be doing a few abstract manoeuvres there. Now they're well and truly underway again, and Finnair had to sacrifice that big lead if they did have to go into a momentary standoff there.
Very kind of them.
Just while they get back going again, you've got a couple of those other momentous sporting events that I think we're going to be seeing in Queensland later this year. I must say that high on the list we haven't mentioned things like the Bicentennial Test, which begins this Friday, and the Gold Cup soccer later in the year, and the big rugby union year. But these will have.
Do you want to hear a couple of racing events?
These will have
Queensland racing events.
These will have their participants.
What about cockroach racing?
That's a beauty.
Cockroach racing and lizard racing,
I think
to be held in Queensland later this year.
My place might have a few starters in that one.
Well, there is a plague on.
Outside. What else have we got?
Well, on a more serious note, we've got the Bicentennial Air Race, and I think that's in Sydney.
Well, that should be fantastic. That's around April, I think, and they'll be heading up there in the air, and in all the old favourites. Well, the 18-footers are in full swing again. Chesty Bond and Ericsson there in the picture. Chesty Bond going away nicely. So that's the scene from an increasingly beautiful Sydney harbour in the late afternoon, and the gathering of the tall ships and large sails. We're watching the small sails as they head on the final leg down to Fort Denison, to the finish line, and their arrival there will almost coincide with the start of the tall ships race, or the tall ships parade, the parade of sail led by the Young Endeavour, and we'll have Gordon Bray and John Hamilton on the Canberra there in comfort, calling the action from that. But from the time being, from South Head, as they go further into the distance away from us, it's Peter Wilkins taking you back to the studio.
Well, Peter Wilkins reporting on the finish of the 18-footer race. Meantime, back in the studio with my very special guest, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher today, and it's very, very good of you to join us for this celebration. I mean, you might have well been out in the crowd enjoying yourself.
Well,
today.
yes, that would have been absolutely delightful, although I must say when I arrived here in Sydney, I had a most wonderful greeting from your Premier, Barry Unsworth, who greeted me with a warm and sympathetic grovel. It
really?
was, yes, yes. It was
Would you like to describe it further for us?
Well, I don't think I need to go into that. I think people understand what I mean when I say that. But of course, I do see that everyone goes to great lengths to make me feel absolutely at home. You know, on the aircraft, before I actually landed, they got a tin of lacquer and they sprayed all my hair for me. I thought that was lovely.
Did they do the other passengers as well?
Well, actually, they did it for some of the others too, which I thought was extremely considerate.
Very egalitarian.
Not just thinking of Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, but thinking of everyone there. Most considerate. I really do appreciate that. And of course, this gives me this excellent opportunity while I'm here to be able to talk down to you all. I'm so happy about that too.
From your lofty position, as it were.
Well, I think I wouldn't say that. You might say it, but I wouldn't.
I think I just did, Prime Minister.
Yes, yes, but I'm just putting it the other way around, so as we understand each other.
But of
and
course.
I think we do, don't you?
I think we probably do, yes, yes.
Yes.
So how long are you actually here gracing our shores?
Well, of course, one of the particular reasons I am here in Sydney is, no doubt you've heard about Janet Brown. Now, she does an excellent impersonation of me.
I believe
she
so,
does
yes.
indeed. I don't mind it at all. I mean, she really is a very sweet person. I really don't mind. But she's here in Sydney, I'm told, and she is appearing in a play for a change. She's appearing in Plaza Suite at the Hyatt Hotel. Now, don't you think that's an excellent opportunity for me to sit there and watch her perform?
Perhaps
but
we
doing
could
something
go
quite
together.
different. Well, I don't usually do that. I usually
sorry.
go with my husband, Dennis.
Is
but
Dennis with you this
I
time?
can't. No, I think he decided he would rather stay at home this time. He likes his golfing, you know. Golfing and the little
19th hole activity,
yes,
as it were.
that and raising a glass occasionally.
As well.
Absolutely. But no, I have plenty of company while I'm here. And of course I shall take enormous pleasure, as I say, at seeing Janet Brown there. I hope you're going to manage to come along there.
Oh,
and see it
certainly,
at some point.
Of course.
I think that would be a very good idea.
Do you go to the theatre often?
I try to when I can, but I have a very busy life, you know, doing this sort of thing, greeting, meeting people, traveling the world. I travel everywhere. You know, I was in America recently with the President of the United States, President Reagan. What a charming man, and so intelligent too. He agrees with me about everything. He's a remarkable man, really, you know. Absolutely remarkable.
I think he does well, you know, stays on his feet quite well.
Oh, of course
Mostly.
he does. Of course he does. And not only have I met him, but I've met... Have we time to discuss this? Or are you about to jump to some other place? I
Well,
don't want to be cut off in the middle of what I'm saying.
middle of your prime,
Do
as it were.
speak up, but you do sort of go a little quiet at times. Are you going to go somewhere else, or are you going to continue talking to me?
I think we're going to stay talking to you
Oh,
for
well,
a
that's
moment.
quite all right.
We might go to Darwin in a moment,
because
but that's all right with
yes,
you.
but
I mean.
do wait till I finish talking, won't
of course,
you?
I'm
But
sorry
I
to
was
interrupt you.
going to, it's quite all right, just wait. I was saying that I've made many visits to many countries. Then recently I went to France, where once again I met the President of France, President Mitterrand. And you know, from the moment we met, we understood each other perfectly.
Really? You speak French?
Yes, just wait a moment.
I'm sorry.
I said to him, President, je suis très content de vous voir. And he replied, 3:30. Now you know how well I speak it. Now what would you like to say?
I was just wondering if he can speak French too.
Is that your funny remark? I would save it for later.
I think it must have been. All right then, well I think it's about time that we went to Darwin, don't you?
Indeed, I would very much like to see what is taking place there.
Well, it's actually a football match.
In this hot weather,
You wouldn't believe it, would you?
Australians are tough. That's
They
all I can
certainly
say.
are. Well, there's a football match happening up there at the present time between North Melbourne and the Northern Territory, and we're going to Darwin for a special report.
I'm extremely lucky.
You certainly are.
As Dave McKeon said, only 10 points the difference. We're coming up to the 15-minute mark of this final quarter, and this could really turn out to be a great finish to what has been a very good match. Nenny Briston got the ball. What can he do this time? Looking downfield. There's Long. Motlop, it's going to go over his head. Here's a chance. Oh, that's brilliant work by Tony Bagona. 15 metres out, right through the middle.
There's still plenty in this game now as Lyle goes in ruck, gets the tap down to Buckley. He's caught with the ball, but just gets it away in time. John Long overruns the ball, picks up his North Melbourne defender. Briston again in front is Bagona, and he takes the mark. Well, Bagona's been in everything in the last 4 minutes. Just when we're talking about could territory be lacking with Dennis Dunn missing through injury, Bagona the perfect replacement. 25 metres out. And there it is.
Cassetti against Lyle. This time Cassetti wins the ball. Here's a chance for Long straight away. Straight up towards centre half forward. They go to Bagona, not able to get the ball that time. That's Joe Armat off the left boot. And it's taken down there. Can't see who that plays. I think it's Brentley Hughes. It is Brentley Hughes. He's taken that mark about 15, 20 metres out from goal on a very acute angle. And David, if he gets this could really seal it for the NTFL side.
Well, we said that about 10 minutes ago that had second thoughts, Wayne, but he's put it through.
The goal umpire doesn't move. That's another major on the board.
Athanasia across to Birdo, who's been quiet since half-time. David Ross there, the young star, has shown very little this season, only had a few kicks this game. But that's a lovely hand pass across to Michael Long. Michael Long, a 40-metre kick. Oh, Bagona held, and the umpire saw it.
Can't seem to do anything wrong at the moment. So, Tony Bagona.
Good umpiring by Hayden Kennedy.
This will be Vagona's fourth goal if he kicks it. In he comes, 30 metres out. They like it. No wonder it's right through the middle. Here's Nenny Briston. Oh, look at this man. So much speed. Still in possession of the ball. In they go. And that's good work by Craig Scholl. Retrieved it for North Melbourne. Kelly O'Donnell was the flyer for the NTFL side. Here's a chance for North Melbourne. But they seem to be slowing down. There doesn't seem to be any rhythm in their movements and their way at the moment. But here's pass ball over the top to Jose Romero. Romero straight down to goal. And here's an easy goal to John McCarthy right in front. And that's his second goal of the match. And as they've done all day, Roy Cassetti against Mark Lyle. Another good bounce. No one really wins that one. It's Motlop on the ground. That is the siren. They all shake hands. That's the end of the match. So the Northern Territory Football League, the representative side, win their fourth match in a row against visiting sides. The final scoreline, NTFL 17, 18, 119. North Melbourne 12, 11, 83.
Well, what a great win. The next thing they'll be in the VFL competition. Back in Sydney, the fine sight of Sydney Harbour, as we now take you back to the overseas terminal. The state luncheon has now been completed, and Prince Charles is about to give a special toast to Australia on this Bicentennial Day 1988.
Ladies and gentlemen, Her Majesty the Queen. The Queen.
The Queen. His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, on this very auspicious occasion, will you please drink a toast to Australia?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Coffee will now be served.
Well, that was the scene inside the overseas terminal where the state luncheon is taking place. The toast to Australia. Coffee is being served, so we'll take a break from the overseas terminal and first of all back out onto Sydney Harbour, then back to the studio. It must be a strange feeling for you, Prime Minister, not to be at a state occasion like this.
Yes, you're quite right. I feel slightly put out, shall we put it that way, that I am not actually sitting at a table at that luncheon.
But their loss is our gain.
Well, what a charming way to put it, too.
But of course.
Yes, yes. No, I was most interested watching just now that very short but gracious speech of Prince Charles.
I suppose you know Prince Charles reasonably well, the royal family, you know.
Oh, yes,
Friends
I've
of
met.
yours?
Oh, yes. Yes, I know most of the royal family. And of course, I meet the Queen a great deal. I've had many audiences with the Queen, tending Buckingham Palace, going through the ceremony, as you know, of the kissing of the hand and the kneeling. I'm always very worried that she won't be able to get up afterwards, but we seem to have managed
You
very
seem
well.
to be able to. Yes, this is quite something, isn't it? Prince Charles, do you think Prince Charles will ever become king?
Oh, but of course. I mean, that will all happen in its own good time. We simply must wait for these events to unfold. One can't push that sort of thing along. But I was very interested watching them all just now. I'm sure you must feel you're missing something sitting here, not being able to raise a glass, you know, and join in with the toast. I've heard a little about you. I hear
really?
that your hobbies are whiskey and golf. But I'm told on very good authority it is only the whiskey you can put down in one.
You've been reading my mail, haven't you?
I'm just having a little fun with you, that's all.
Oh, that's very nice of you to do that, isn't it? You do a lot of research before you come to a country like Australia, do you, about the people that you like to meet?
Every country. Yes, of course, and I've met many charming people since I have arrived here. Of course, we all know the film Crocodile Dundee. That has done splendid work for Australia. What could be better? I mean, I myself, I've seen the film 3 times. Now, Paul Hogan, now there's a man I would like to have in my cabinet.
Any particular position in the cabinet?
Oh, but only if I were 5 years younger.
Of course. What would you make him? Minister of offence or
really?
something? Yeah.
Oh, I think not. He is just absolutely charming. He could do splendid work for me, I know. Just look what he's done for Australia.
This is true. All right then. Well, it's been delightful having you with us here in the studio. I hope you're able to stay with us for a little longer this afternoon.
Oh, I do hope so as well. There are just so many things to see and so much is going on, and I wouldn't like to miss it. I mean, my trips to Australia are not all that numerous, so it's a joy to be able to share this with you and with all the Australians today.
Oh, this is really good. And of course you'll be, as you said, going along and meeting the people while you're here and the theatre.
Oh yes. Oh yes, indeed I will. As I said a little earlier, I'm definitely going along to the theatre, to the Carey Jules Theatre, actually. It's dinner theatre, they call it here, which is most interesting, don't you think so? And I'm certainly going to go to that. As I said a few moments ago, I'd certainly want to see Plaza Suite. I'm not going to miss that with Janet Brown.
Now, how do you feel about people like Janet Brown impersonating you?
Well, I really don't mind. I don't mind at all, because she is very good about it. I mean, I might take exception to some others, but not to her. I have to say that, haven't I? The position I'm in today.
Oh dear. All right then, well I think we'd better go out onto the harbour again. Would you fancy a little
I would like to
trot out
see
on the
what's
harbour?
happening now. I certainly would, and I'm sure all the viewers would as well.
This is true.
What
Well,
is going on?
The finish of the 18-footers.
Oh, we must see that.
And
is that coming up
Peter
now?
Wilkins is back with us again.
I see. Oh, well, I simply must watch that.
Good.
It's coming along now, is it?
Yes, it's an absolute special, Sydney Harbour, and there are two boats vying for the honours today in the 18-footers CSR Grand Prix Challenge. Hookers and Fenair, who've led for much of the race, and you can see that southeasterly to easterly occasionally, really pumping the big spinnakers on towards the finish there up near Fort Denison. And all the spectator craft just creating a little bit more work for the boys to do aboard these very, very slick 18-footers. Fenair, as we've stated before, with Michael Walsh, the skipper, doing a grand job today, right out on the wings, tiptoe control there. And really it's a bit of a knife edge between success and disaster in these 18-footers. And look, they're chasing Chesty Bond, Bank of New Zealand, across the picture there on starboard jibe. And they're powering down towards the finish. Chesty Bond, Fenair and Hooker. A glorious sight. Ericsson there as well. So a real parade of 18-footers sail with 9 of the slickest craft. Great exponents of the art of sailing in Sydney Harbour, and down towards the finish line they go. Let's see who's laid this correctly. Hookers and Fenair. Well, I think they'll need the photo finish camera here. They obviously haven't laid the mark that well, because Hookers just jibing, and now Fenair perhaps going a little bit further, squeezing as much as they can out of that breeze. And also trying to take a bit of the air from Chesty Bond, which have they done or haven't they? Well, I don't know how they can find their way through there. It is absolute chaos. It's not often you can lose the 18-footers sails on the Sydney Harbour. The huge spinnakers, but they're picking their way through the craft and down to the finish. And there's Chesty Bond. Well, it's a bit hard to see where the finish line actually is. Fenair and Chesty Bond engaged in a real battle royal. And not too far to go, one feels, before the gun signals the end of this CSR Grand Prix Challenge on Australia Day. A real exhibition of sailing from the 18-footer boys, and a sweep right across there. Sydney Harbour, chock-a-block. and one of the tall ships, that looks like the Guayas, the tall ship, and they'll be parading as much sail as possible later on down the harbour as they head up towards us again on South Head. And the Guaya Stuart Scowcroft on board there, 78.5 metres long, a really majestic sight, the Ecuadorian three-masted bark. Well, with that glorious sight and the end of the 18-footers race there, it looked to be a photo between Fenair and Chesty Bond. Let's take you back to Barry Eaton.
Peter Wilkins at South Head. He's been doing a sterling job today. There's so many people watching the bicentennial events today.
They've all worked so hard today, and from a very early hour, but then you yourself have been working from an early hour.
Well.
Probably you're like me. I get up very early in the morning.
What do you do when you first get up?
Mind your own business.
I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. But of course I do rise very early, 6:30, 6:45. Have coffee, if you really want to know, just a cup of coffee.
That was what I was really meaning.
Of course, but it is a little personal to a Prime Minister. What do you do when you get up in the morning?
Yes,
a little
Prime
bit
Minister,
brisk,
yes.
really. But I do the customary thing. I have coffee, I have orange juice. I don't have any breakfast. No, that I cut out. I have to watch my weight, you know.
Really?
Yes, Janet Brown's a little slimmer than I am, so I do have to be careful. I have to think about it. But of course you were explaining.
What do you think about it?
Well, I did say earlier, aren't you listening?
I'm sorry.
Yes, it's quite all right. I did point out what I felt about her, and I thought she was charming and interesting, and that I'm going to go and see her, as I said earlier on. Now, what's happening now?
Well, we have the royal party leaving the overseas terminal. As you can see there, Princess Di on the left of the screen with our Premier Barry Unsworth. Here's Prince Charles. Now, the royal couple, at this stage, we don't want to start any gossip or anything, but they are actually going their separate ways for the next couple of hours.
Oh, yes. Well, they must be shared out, mustn't they?
This is true. Well, actually, Prince Charles is heading off on board the HMAS Cook in just a few moments' time.
Yes, yes.
And he'll be going out to review the parade of sail.
Yes.
But Princess Di, she'll be getting back on board the proud Sydney, and she'll be heading off to Government House.
Oh, really?
Of course, you know about the big vice-regal dinner there tonight.
Oh, do tell me a little more. What the guests, all the guests that will be attending, are they from various parts of the country?
Oh, I would imagine that everybody who's anybody will be there tonight.
Really?
Except myself, of course.
Yes, well, of course, but I understand that. You can't be everywhere. You're in such demand, too. But, of course, if they are all attending this evening, I suppose their background really is from Ireland originally, Wales, Yorkshire, all these different places. Well, to all of you listening now, particularly if you have hailed or come from those spots, it's quite all right. I'll speak a little slower.
Very nice.
That's quite all right. Now here I see...
Well, now we've just had word that Princess Di, like all ladies, has changed her mind. And she has now decided to go on board HMAS Cook, after all, to review the parade of sail. So it must have been a pretty good lunch.
Oh, I would imagine so. Although, you know, I'm sure they must sort of have to take this easy because they have so many lunches. I heard them saying earlier on, it's all food today. They're lunching now, there's dinner tonight. Great deal of eating going on.
This is true. So,
yes,
originally Princess Di was going to go back to Government House to have a little rest up before
well,
the
it's the prerogative of a woman to be able to change her mind, and why not?
Indeed.
Why not?
Indeed.
On a wonderful day like today.
So there we are. I'm sorry, Prime Minister, I didn't mean
to
touch you
quite
there.
all right.
Yes.
Right, it was only my foot.
Oh, well, that's all right. You're used to having people grovel at
yes,
your feet.
Yes, indeed I am. Quite
so anyway, there we go. They're off on the HMAS Cook now, and there'll be the parade of sail this afternoon.
Yes.
It's going to be
yes.
really something.
Oh, it should be most exciting. I hope I'm going to be able to watch all of that as well. I really am.
Have you had a chance to visit the tall ships?
No, I have not had the opportunity to go aboard any of them, or even to be present at the docks, or at Darling Harbour.
Darling Harbour,
That's
yes.
right. But of course, with all this going on in television, I'm really in a prime... Do you notice I said prime position?
I noticed that. Is that your little
Without
joke?
meaning to make a pun, but I made that one up myself.
That's very
but
clever of you,
I'm in a position to watch everything the way the viewers are doing it, and I don't think I can do better than that, do you?
I would think not. Well, look, if you'll bear with us for a few more minutes, we're going down to Hobart now, which was
really?
one of the early colonies. You may remember.
Oh, but of course I know all about that.
And
yes,
they used to flog people and things down there years ago, but now they have a special dancing demonstration for us.
Yes.
So we're going to watch
We're
that
going
right
on
now.
to brighter things. We're leaving the flogging behind. I don't know.
Yes, we'll leave that to you in the cabinet.
No.
Right,
Said
down to
enough,
Hobart
thank you.
now.
Thank you. And while Australia celebrates its 200th birthday today, not everyone has been here that long, of course. And one such group, Arauco Libre, Chilean folk singing group, have been here, in fact, less than a year. They're professional musicians from Chile who've been resettled in Australia as refugees, and all have either been tortured or held captive by Chilean authorities over the past 5 years. The money that they raise goes to help Chilean refugees resettle in Australia, and here, for your enjoyment, on Australia Day, is a selection of their songs. Arauco Libre.
Alcemos esta muralla, juntando todas las manos, juntando todas las manos, los negros sus manos negras, los blancos sus blancas manos. Una muralla que vaya desde la playa hasta el monte. Desde la playa hasta el monte, desde el monte hasta la playa, allá sobre el horizonte.